Welcome to the deep dive. We're cutting through the noise today, really taking a big story and trying to pull out the essentials, those insights, maybe some surprising bits that make it stick.
Think of it as your fast track.
Exactly. Your fast track to being in the know.
And the story we're diving into today, it's a real powerhouse. Innovation, transformation. It's the journey of Mark Zuckerberg and, well, how Facebook became Meta.
Right. So we've got this narrative source basically walking us through his life and work. And our mission, really, to get to the core of that journey. Find those aha moments.
The pivots, yeah.
Yeah, how he went from this, curious kid to a tech leader influencing billions. We want to give you clarity, but, without getting totally bogged down in detail. Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Let's do it.
Let's get right into it then. Chapter 1, the beginning.
Okay, let's set the scene. Mark Zuckerberg, born May 14th, 1984, White Plains, New York. But he grew up mostly in Dobbs Ferry, not far away.
And the family environment seems important here.
It really does. The source points to it being pretty crucial. His dad was a dentist, his mom a psychiatrist, he had 3 sisters. And it sounds like, a warm household, lots of emphasis on learning, intellectual stuff.
Which probably fueled that early curiosity we hear about. Loved puzzles, problem solving.
Definitely. And then computers entered the picture. He got his first one, a Quantex 486DX, around age 10. This would have been the early 90s.
And unlike maybe a lot of kids just playing games, he was hooked on something else.
Yeah, he was fascinated by how they actually worked, how they communicated. It wasn't just about using them, it was about understanding them, tinkering.
Took beyond just gaming, yeah.
Which led him pretty quickly into programming, even at a young age.
Right, that brings us to ZuckNet, this chat system he built for his family.
Exactly, a private chat system. And the interesting detail is his father, the dentist, actually used it in his office to communicate with the receptionist, things like that.
So not just a toy project, it had a real practical use, even if small scale.
Right. It showed he could build something functional, something that solved a communication need. You can kind of see the seeds of Facebook there, maybe. That core idea of connection.
Connecting people. Even then. And at school, what was he like?
Described as quiet but brilliant, really into science, math, but also ancient languages like Latin.
Latin. Okay, so a broad range of interest, not just tech.
No, definitely not. He went to Ardsley High initially, then transferred to Phillips Exeter Academy, which is a pretty prestigious boarding school.
And he did well there.
Very well. Got awards in science and classical studies. Plus, he was captain of the fencing team.
Fencing. Okay, so mind and body, balanced, disciplined, maybe.
Suggests that, yeah, strategy, focus, qualities you can imagine being useful later on.
Absolutely. And then there was this high school project, Synapse. What was that about?
Synapse was basically an early version of Spotify's recommendation engine. It learned your music taste and created smart playlists. Pretty advanced for a high school project.
And it got noticed.
Big time. Companies like Microsoft, AOL, they showed interest, even offered him jobs, apparently.
Wow, as a high school kid. And he turned them down.
Turned them down. The source suggests he felt he had bigger plans.
Bigger plans. Okay. That says a lot about his ambition, even then.
It really does. So, from Exeter, he heads to Harvard in 2002. Studies psychology and computer science.
Psychology, too. Interesting combination with computer science.
Yeah, and you can see how understanding human behavior might feed into building social platforms later. But reports suggest he wasn't exactly Mr. Social Butterfly at Harvard, more focused on coding in his dorm room.
Less parties, more programming.
Pretty much. Which leads us to 2003 and the infamous face smash.
Ah, yes. Face mash. The hot or not for Harvard students, basically. Got in a lot of
A
trouble.
lot of trouble comparing student photos he'd scraped from university sites. Harvard shut it down fast. He almost got expelled. It was messy.
But despite the, you know, ethical storm around it, there was a key takeaway, wasn't there?
Absolutely. What Face Mash proved, maybe accidentally, was this huge untapped interest among students in seeing each other online, connecting visually, sharing profiles.
Not necessarily the comparison part, but the seeing and connecting part.
Exactly. It showed that the existing online tools weren't really doing what Harvard students wanted in terms of social connection within their own community.
So the light bulb moment wasn't Face Mash itself, but the reaction to it.
That seems to be the key insight. He saw the demand.
Yeah.
And realized there was a gap. So January 2004, he starts building something new, something focused on connection, not comparison.
And that was the Facebook.
That was the beginning of the Facebook, right there in his dorm room.
So, okay, January 2004, Harvard dorm room. He starts coding the Facebook. What was the initial idea?
Pretty simple, really, but powerful. Online profiles just for Harvard students. You'd put up your photo, name, major, maybe your class schedule, interests, and you could connect, send messages, like an online yearbook, but, live.
And exclusive to Harvard at first. That seems key.
Yeah, that exclusivity created a buzz, a sense of community. It tapped into the existing social structure, but moved it online. Made finding people easier.
Was he working alone on this?
Not entirely. He pulled in a few key people early on. Eduardo Saverin handled the business side, the money. Dustin Moskovitz helped with coding. Chris Hughes focused on promotion, ideas, a small core team.
So he knew he couldn't do it all himself, even then. Needed different
It
skills.
seems like it. Recognizing the need for business sense, more coding power, outreach.
When did it launch?
February 4th, 2004. And the uptake was just immediate. Phenomenal.
Like how fast?
Within weeks, more than half of Harvard's undergraduate students had signed up.
Wow. Just like that. That clearly shows it hit a nerve, right? Filled a real gap.
Absolutely. Solved a problem people maybe didn't even articulate fully until the solution appeared. Easy connection within their world.
And did it stay just Harvard for long?
Nope. Almost immediately, students at other universities, Yale, Stanford, Columbia, were the first, I think, started clamoring for it. They wanted in.
So it spread organically. Word of mouth.
Pretty much. Demand pulled it outwards. First across the Ivy League, then to other top schools pretty quickly.
That must have created some challenges, trying to manage that growth while still being a student.
Huge challenges. Scaling the tech, managing servers, handling requests, all while juggling classes. It clearly became unsustainable as just a dorm room project.
Which led to
The big move. Summer of 2004, they packed up and headed to Palo Alto, California, rented a house, decided to focus on the Facebook full-time.
right into the heart of Silicon Valley. That signals a shift, doesn't it? From college project to actual startup.
Definitely. A serious commitment, immersing themselves in that tech environment, looking for resources, talent, thinking much bigger than just colleges.
And that's where they got some crucial early funding.
Yes. Peter Thiel, the PayPal co-founder, came in with a $500,000 investment. That was huge.
$500,000.
Yeah.
What did that allow them to do?
It was fuel for the fire, allowed them to hire more people, get better servers, improve the site, actually plan the expansion instead of just reacting, gave them breathing room and resources to scale properly.
And somewhere around this time, the name changed too, right?
Yeah, simple change, but significant. They dropped the just became Facebook.
Makes it sound broader, more universal somehow. Less tied just to universities.
Exactly. A step towards a global brand identity.
Now, this early period wasn't all smooth sailing. There was the conflict with the Winklevoss twins and Divya Narendra.
Right, the whole Harvard connection Connect You situation. They had approached Zuckerberg earlier to help build their social network idea.
And their claim was,
They alleged he basically stalled them, took their ideas, and used the knowledge he gained working with them briefly to build Facebook instead. Essentially, that he stole their concept.
which led to a lawsuit.
A pretty famous lawsuit, yeah, it went on for a while. Eventually, there was a settlement. The Winklevosses and Narendra received millions in cash and Facebook stock.
But the debate kind of continued, didn't it? Was it really their idea, or was it Zuckerberg's execution that mattered?
And that's the crux of it. Often, the source notes this ongoing debate. Ideas might float around, but building it, scaling it, getting users, that execution is critical. The lawsuit highlights that tension between concept and realization.
Meanwhile, despite the legal battle, Facebook just kept growing.
Relentlessly. They opened up to more schools, then high schools, and then the big one, 2006, they opened it up to everyone, anyone with an email address.
And that's when it really exploded globally.
Absolutely. That removed the final barrier. It went from a student network to a worldwide phenomenon almost overnight. Millions and millions of users started pouring in.
And Zuckerberg himself was still incredibly young through all this, like
Okay.
22 when it opened to everyone.
Yeah, just 22. And already running this massive global platform, his style was also pretty unconventional for a CEO of that scale.
A hoodie?
The gray hoodie, yeah. Avoiding the spotlight, mostly. The focus seemed purely on growth, connection, the product itself. Not so much on making money right away or being famous.
What does that tell us about his motivation, do you think?
Suggests a really intense focus on the mission, the building aspect. Like, the external markers of success weren't the main goal. The platform's reach and utility seemed paramount.
And his work style behind the scenes.
Described as focused, intense, maybe a bit private, but when he did communicate, it was impactful, set a clear direction.
Did everyone stick around? Any early bumps with the team or investors?
Oh, sure. There were early departures, disagreements, which is pretty standard for startups under that kind of pressure. But the account suggests Zuckerberg remained really firm on his core vision. He didn't waver easily.
That persistence paid off, financially at least, by 2007.
By 2007, Facebook was valued at something like $15 billion. And that made Zuckerberg, at 23, the world's youngest self-made billionaire.
Incredible. But you get the sense that even that wasn't the end goal for him.
Exactly. The narrative suggests he saw it as just the beginning. A milestone, yes. But his ambition was clearly much larger. He was aiming for something truly global and transformative.
So 2007, Facebook isn't just a website anymore. It's this global movement. And Zuckerberg is, what, 23?
Yeah, 23 years old and steering this massive ship. The responsibility must have been immense. Millions of users, all that data, making decisions about design, safety, privacy, how to even make money.
That scale changes everything, I imagine. Every decision has huge ripple effects.
Absolutely. And his core focus, according to the source, remained that idea of global connection. Getting Facebook into every language, onto every phone, into every country. That relentless expansion drive.
And this is when we saw some really core features roll out, right? Stuff we totally take for granted now.
Definitely. Things like the news feed, the like button, Facebook pages for businesses and organizations.
I remember the news feed causing a huge uproar initially. People felt it was creepy, like spying on their friends.
Exactly. There was significant user backlash. Privacy concerns were front and center. It really highlights that tension, innovating, adding features, but also navigating user expectations and comfort levels. It's a tough balancing act at that scale.
But eventually, Newsfeed became central to the experience. People adapted.
They did. It fundamentally changed how people used the platform, and then came the big acquisitions. Instagram in 2012,
For $1 billion, that seemed like an insane amount of money at the time for a photo app with, what, like 13 employees?
It did raise a lot of eyebrows,
Yeah.
but looking back, you can see the strategic thinking. Recognizing the shift towards visual communication, maybe seeing Instagram as a potential future competitor.
So part defensive move, part seizing an opportunity.
Seems like it. Integrating Instagram kept that growing user base within the Facebook ecosystem and tapped into a different kind of social sharing. It showed foresight, understanding where the landscape was heading.
And 2012 was also the year Facebook went public, the IPO.
Huge moment. Zuckerberg ringing the bell at NASDAQ, virtually from Facebook HQ. The company valued at over $100 billion. It cemented Facebook as a true tech giant.
What did going public mean beyond just the money?
It meant a lot more scrutiny, accountability to shareholders, quarterly earnings reports, operating under the public microscope, a big shift from being a private company.
Yet, even with billionaire status and running this massive public company, reports say his lifestyle stayed pretty simple. Still the hoodie, driving a regular car.
Yeah, that contrast is often highlighted. The immense wealth and power versus a personal life that seemed, outwardly at least, quite modest.
Suggests the focus remained on the company, the mission.
That's the common interpretation, that the external stuff wasn't the main driver for him.
But as Facebook got bigger and more powerful, the criticism started getting louder too.
Inevitably, questions about privacy intensified. Concerns about how much information Facebook controlled, its influence on news consumption, on society itself.
Which all came to a head with the Cambridge Analytica scandal in 2018. That felt like a real turning point.
It really did. The revelation that a political consulting firm had improperly accessed data from tens of millions of Facebook users, that sparked outrage. Government investigations were launched in the US and Europe. Trust took a massive hit.
And we saw Zuckerberg having to testify before Congress, trading the hoodie for a suit.
That was a defining image. Facing hours of questioning from lawmakers about privacy, election interference, fake news, the platform's impact on mental health, all of it.
What was his message during those hearings?
He acknowledged mistakes, said Facebook hadn't done enough to prevent misuse of the platform. He took responsibility and promised to do better, to put stronger protections in place, to regain user trust.
Was it enough? Did they manage to rebuild that trust?
It's been a long, ongoing process. Facebook, or Meta now, did implement changes. More security, supposedly more user control over data, hiring thousands of content reviewers trying to tackle fake news. But the critics argued it wasn't enough, that the fundamental problems remained.
What were those fundamental criticisms that lingered?
Things like, Facebook is just too big, too powerful. It harms democracy by allowing misinformation to spread. It doesn't do enough about hate speech. It collects way too much data, that kind of thing.
And the defense often was that it's a neutral platform, reflecting society, both good and bad.
Right. That they're primarily a technology company providing a platform, and they shouldn't be the arbiters of truth. Though Zuckerberg's stance did evolve to acknowledge more responsibility over time.
He still seemed to believe in the core mission of connecting people.
Yes, but with a growing layer of emphasis on the responsibilities that come with that connection at such a massive scale.
And then, amidst all this scrutiny and debate about the present, he makes this huge pivot towards the future. 2021. The metaverse.
A really bold, maybe even unexpected move, announcing that the company's future lay beyond social media and building this immersive 3D version of the internet, the metaverse.
Can you break down that concept again? What is the metaverse as he sees it?
The idea is moving from looking at the internet on screens to being inside it, using VR headsets, maybe AR glasses eventually, to enter shared virtual spaces where you can work, play, learn, socialize as an avatar, a more embodied digital existence.
And changing the company name from Facebook to Meta, that was purely symbolic.
Highly symbolic, yeah. Signaling this wasn't just a side project, it was the new core direction, the future identity of the company, moving beyond the Facebook app itself.
How did people react to that, this huge bet on the metaverse?
Very mixed, a lot of excitement from some quarters about the potential, new ways to work, learn, be entertained, but also a lot of skepticism. Was it realistic? Was it just a distraction from Facebook's existing problems? Was it something people even wanted? Plus, concerns about privacy and control in an even more immersive digital world.
So a blend of genius and maybe stubbornness pushing this vision forward despite the doubts.
You could certainly frame it that way. Determined, focused, maybe impervious to criticism sometimes. That seems consistent throughout his journey.
Okay, so October 2021, the big announcement. Facebook is now Meta.
And it wasn't just slapping a new name on things, right? It was about signaling this major shift.
Exactly, a fundamental redirection, putting the metaverse at the center of the company's long-term vision.
And this vision, stepping into the internet through headsets, glasses, doing things like virtual meetings that feel more real, going to virtual concerts, classrooms.
Or just hanging out with friends in custom virtual spaces. Exploring digital world. The idea is presence, feeling like you're actually there with other people, even if you're physically miles apart. Zuckerberg really believes this is the next big computing platform after mobile.
And Meta's been pouring money into making this happen.
Billions and billions.
Yeah.
Developing the VR hardware like their Quest headsets, working on AR glasses, building the software platforms like Horizon Worlds where these experiences can happen. It's a massive long-term investment.
As we said, the reaction hasn't been universally positive. There's excitement, sure, but also a lot of questions. Huge questions. About the cost, firstly. Is this the best use of Meta's resources? Then there's the risk, will the technology mature? Will people actually want to spend significant time in the metaverse? And is it maybe a way to distract from ongoing issues with Facebook and Instagram, like privacy, fake news, mental health impacts?
Plus, the timing coincided with some challenges for the core business, didn't it?
Yeah, Facebook's user growth was slowing down, especially among younger demographics. TikTok emerged as this massive competitor for attention. Investors started getting nervous. Meta's stock price took a big hit for a while. It raised questions about whether the metaverse bet was the right strategy at that moment.
Zuckerberg's response seems to be persistence, sticking to the long game.
Very much so. He's often drawn parallels to the early days of Facebook, pointing out how many people were skeptical back then, too. His public statements suggest an unwavering belief that this is the future, even if it takes years, maybe decades, to fully realize.
Alongside this future-focused tech push, has there been more talk about, well, responsibility, dealing with the present?
Yes, increasingly so. Discussions around freedom of expression versus safety, how to build healthy online communities, protecting users, especially younger ones, in these new virtual spaces too. These seem to be active considerations.
So concrete steps being taken, or just talk.
Meta points to things like stronger community standards, tools for users to control their experience, blocking harmful content, parental controls, limiting screen time options. They also talk about collaborating with experts and governments on issues like fake news and hate speech. It's complex, and critics still say it's not enough, but there's definitely more public focus on it.
And briefly on the personal side, we know he's married to Priscilla Chan.
Right. They met at Harvard. She's a physician and philanthropist. Together, they run the Chan-Zuckerberg Initiative, CZI.
Which does?
Focuses on huge long-term challenges, using their wealth for science, education, promoting justice and opportunity. It's a massive philanthropic effort.
And they have kids.
3 daughters, yes. And lately, maybe partly through CZI, partly through his own social media, there seems to be an effort to show a bit more of his personal side. Interests like surfing, his continued fencing, talking about family.
Trying to seem more human.
Mm,
Relatable.
perhaps, and reiterating that core belief that technology's ultimate goal should be bringing people closer together, despite all the challenges and controversies along the way.
So where does that leave things now?
Yeah.
Meta keeps growing. The metaverse is still being built.
Yeah.
The future's pretty uncertain.
Very uncertain. It's a huge gamble. But Zuckerberg's ambition, that drive that took him from a dorm room to leading one of the most influential companies on Earth, that clearly hasn't faded. His ideas have already fundamentally changed how we live online.
And the story's definitely not over yet.
Not by a long shot. It's still unfolding.
And really, when you step back, Zuckerberg's story isn't just about business success, is it? It's about vision, yeah, but also about perseverance, learning from mistakes, big ones sometimes,
Yeah.
and constantly pushing what's next in technology.
Those aha moments we talked about are fascinating. Thinking about them, the insight from Face Mash, the Instagram buy, the metaverse pivot, what do they tell you about how innovation really happens? Is it flashes of genius or recognizing shifts or just bold execution?
It's a great question. And it forces you, doesn't it, to think about that balance, this incredible speed of tech advancement versus the responsibility that comes with it. His whole career is like a case study in that tension.
Which leads us to the final thought for you, our listener. Looking ahead, considering where the internet might go, and Zuckerberg's huge ambition for this immersive metaverse, what parts of our lives, our connections, maybe even our idea of what's real, do you think could be most profoundly changed in the next 10, 20 years? What are the big upsides you see? And what are the risks we really need to keep thinking critically about as we head deeper into this digital future?